Hello and welcome back to League Talk. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about something super interesting. We're going to be talking about visualization. Now, this is something that's obviously used an awful lot in traditional sports, and I believe it's coming closer and closer to being used in esports. I'm not 100% sure, but what I thought I would do is I would take everyone through a little introduction, one famous technique of using it, and then something from a book that I've read recently, which I think is probably the best way to visualize something overall. Right, so the introduction. Basically, visualization is a sports psychology technique in which you visualize or imagine a situation. It could be any situation. It should be favorable and it should be something you're looking to make happen. So, as I said, it's often used in traditional sports such as football. It could be envisioning you score a penalty or taking a free kick and scoring it. It's the same in tennis, for example, you're going to hit an ace with your serve, or it can be a still image, it can be a moving image, it could be a video. It's best used as a warm-up exercise, but you have loads of different ways of doing it, right? And the famous ways, the two main ways, are both guided and unguided visualization. Of course, guided, therefore, is someone that takes you through a process of visualization, whilst unguided is you sitting there doing it yourself. Now, in essence, it conditions your brain for successful outcomes, with the aim of it becoming a habit, if that makes sense. So you basically get your brain prepped and primed for performance. So let's get into the first famous technique. Now, the first technique is to picture yourself in a cinema, or it could be your living room, for example, with the TV in front of you and the big screen in front of you. Now, the first thing that happens is the lights dim and the movie starts, and it has that famous 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 countdown. The movie is you performing the task that you are looking to perform at its best. So that could be an Alistair W flash Q combo, like you've seen Vulcan do, where they predict the movement and Q flash Q after the movement. Or it could be you hitting an EQ on Jarvan, it could be an EQ ulti on Jarvan, it could be any combo like that. The classic ways, of course, is you use traditional sports, but that's not the way we're going to be using it today. The next phase of that is you then getting up out of your seat and moving into the picture. You go into a little door, or you imagine yourself like physically going into the screen, and then it's you actively performing the task. Now, the interesting thing about this is it sort of takes you as the person that's watching, it then moves you as the person that's participating, and then the next stage is you step back out of the picture and sit back down and you watch it one more time. So it's a repetition as well. So that's really, really interesting. There's obviously those three big steps there, and that's one really famous technique. So you move into the screen and you become Alistair, you're the one, or you have, it's a picture, say for example it's like a camera up here, up on the ceiling or something, and it's you playing the video game, you're hitting the buttons, you're doing it properly. Now, that's a really, really obvious, really famous technique that's used an awful lot. Now, the book that I'm going to be talking about for visualization is called The Mental Edge. Now, this is a fantastic book, highly recommend it. I'll put the link in the description if anyone does want to have a read through. It is relatively old, I can't remember exactly, I think it was late 90s, early 2000s that this was released. And it's the basic idea that you can do other things in performance and in sport that help you other than improving your physical body, right? So part of this is to do with visualization. Now, the importance of visualization in the Mental Edge is you first need to have a goal. So they use it from what's called a desire statement, and you visualize that in the future. So your desire statement could be that I desire to be a pro gamer. It could be I desire to be the best Alistair in North America, for example. But it could just be super simple. So what you've got to do is you've got to picture your goal and the achievement of it in the future. And when you're thinking about this, think about the setting, the expression, your emotions, your posture, for example, the thoughts, just to name a few. You've got to think deeper than you just holding a trophy or making it onto a team of League of Legends. So, yeah, really think further than just achieving. Think of all the things that's around it. They then move on to talk about engaging in peak performance, as the above is very simple. So what we've just spoken about there, the previous stuff about the setting, the expression, your emotions, it's simple to do. So how do we take our goal and try to achieve higher performance from that? And this, it can be, they call this the priming of the self, right? And this can be achieved through 6 knobs, right? So 6 little turns. It could be, you use it as like it's quite difficult to explain, but a volume up or a volume down knob, for example. And those all do different things, those 6 knobs, but they all in essence enhance the visualization. So the first one deals with zoom, so you can twist a knob to zoom in, zoom out. The next one does color, so the more you twist the knob, the more vibrant the color is, the less obviously the less vibrant it is. The next one is brightness, so the brighter the picture can be, you twist it and it becomes brighter. The sound, so the more noise, it could be the crowd that you can hear, for example. The tone, so it's the tone of color, the tone of sound, something like that. And then the last one is intensity, so how intense that visualization is. Now what you can do is when you're in your visualization in whatever way you find best, it could be in the movie, it could be you just sitting there and thinking about it deeply, but you use these 6 knobs and you actively imagine yourself turning these knobs. So you turn up the zoom, you turn up the color, you turn up the brightness. It all enhances the visualization. Now this is a wonderful way to keep yourself in an associated state of visualization. Now we're going to get into that now. So there are 2 types of visualization. Obviously there's guided and unguided, but there's also associated and dissociated visualization. Now, dissociated visualization is the thing to stay well away from. Steer clear of this. It's simply the truth or the current position you're in, for example. So it could be your exact cross-court backhand in tennis. It could be the way that you do your EQ combo on Jarvan, and it's a little bit laboured. People have enough time to flash out of it. It could be your Gragas combo where you press W, you prime the W, you go E, as you're Eing you Q, and as you hit the E you press your ulti and you pop all the damage. Maybe that's not in the best state. Maybe people often flash out before you hit the ulti. So it's just about getting the scenario you're in at the moment. Now, that's dissociated. We don't want that. What we want is what we call associated visualization. Now, the associated is basically the ideal scenario. So where you press W, you E over the wall, or you E flash over the wall, press your Q, it lands perfectly timed with your ultimate, and they don't have time to flash out of it if you're Gragas. That's the ideal associated visualization. Of course, using the formula is not very helpful. If you use dissociated visualization, if that happens, you might as well not do it at all. So that's one of the really important things, and they go through a bunch of different ways to help you with your visualization. They give you tips as well. So once you've ensured that you're in the associated visualization state, which can just be done by making sure that you visualize something that isn't in the current scenario, so not your current combo, what you're aiming for, what you're hoping for. That's brilliant. You've used all the knobs to enhance the zoom, for example, enhance the color, the intensity of your visualization. They didn't give you some tips to make the most out of it. So I think these are the best tips. These are the ones that I think are easily applied as well. The first one is just to make sure you're not in a dissociated state where the images are detached or fuzzy. Instead of when you're intimately involved and the images are vibrant, and this comes through a lack of concentration basically. So this refers back to the dissociated state, making sure you're not in there, making sure you're concentrating on what you're doing. So don't be trying to visualize but all you're thinking about is what you're having for dinner, for example. You need to clear your mind of that, make sure that isn't happening. And then the next thing that they talk about is asking yourself specific questions that makes you more involved and reduces the dissociated state. So again, it's just a matter of not being in that dissociated state. So it could be, what did I see, for example? What did I hear? What did I smell? What did I touch? Those are some things that engage your senses, which make the visualization deeper, more associated, more thoughtful. So these are some really, really good ways of doing it. I know this video, this podcast, both of them, if you're not watching the video, you can check it out. The audio is always stripped for the podcast. And if you're not listening to this and you fancy watching it, then you can head over to my YouTube channel, obviously just League Talk with the capital E for League, the second E, of course. You can do both of those, whatever you please. But those senses, once they're engaged, I know, as I said, this is a quick video, this is a quick podcast, but hopefully with those tips that I've given you, you'll at least be able to understand visualization a bit better. Maybe you can do some really basic visualization techniques. Of course, the movie theatre is a really good place to start. And once you've got a little bit better, use the techniques that have been described in the Mental Edge. Now, if you did enjoy this, and I hope you did, you can get in contact with me at League Talk Show on Twitter or at League_Talk on Instagram. Those are the best places to do it. I've been pumping out a bunch of content recently. Maybe you've seen some adverts on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. Hopefully those are reaching people in the right way. But yeah, I'd really love some feedback. So if you are listening to this, do get in contact. I would really, really love to hear from anyone that has been listening or involved in League Talk in any way, shape or form, just for some general feedback. If there's any tips or tricks that you want to give me, anything to make the videos better, to make the the podcast better, then let me know. I hope you've really, really enjoyed this episode, and there's much more content to come, so stay tuned every Sunday and Wednesday for more League Talk action.